You are sitting in the corner booth of a dimly lit cafe, rolling a torn sugar packet between your thumb and index finger. It has been exactly 45 minutes since you sat down with this new acquaintance. The porcelain cups between you are already going cold. Suddenly, their voice cracks, their eyes well up, and before you even realize what the shift is, they are weeping over the table. They are dragging you into a devastating graphic narrative about an abusive former partner or a deeply traumatic childhood, pouring out their darkest agonies before the first hour is even over. Notice what happens in your body. Your chest tightens. You lean forward, closing the physical distance, and instinctively drop your voice to a hushed, soothing whisper. The weak version of you takes this bait without a second of hesitation. That version feels profoundly honored to be trusted so quickly, reaches for the leather checkbook to pay the bill, and offers a willing shoulder to cry on. You believe you have just witnessed a rare, beautiful spark of human connection. But the ruthless version of you does not lean in. The ruthless version of you presses your spine against the stiff wood of the booth, narrows your eyes, and watches the tears fall with absolute coldness. That version recognizes this performance for exactly what it is, an unauthorized extraction of intimacy. Society calls this opening up. In the cold mechanics of human behavior, it is a psychological Trojan horse. True vulnerability is a heavy currency, earned slowly through months of behavioral consistency and mutual risk. But the manipulator has no patience for the normal, tedious vetting process of a human relationship. They manufacture rapid, unearned intimacy to bypass your logical defenses entirely. By throwing their deepest wounds onto the table like a bloody sacrifice, they force you into the immediate role of the protector. Every tear is a calculated strike against your social conditioning. They are not looking for a connection. They are testing your permeability. They want to see exactly how fast you will abandon your own emotional boundaries when faced with the illusion of fragility. You walk out of that cafe into the early evening air, thinking you are simply a good, empathetic listener. You think you are laying the foundation for a profound bond. No. You have just swallowed a hook with a jagged edge, and in the next stage, the predator will use your own biological programming against you to drag you straight into the dark. The glaring white light of the screen slices through the absolute darkness of your bedroom. The vibration motor hums a violent mechanical rhythm against the hollow wood of your nightstand, jolting your heart rate into an immediate spike. You squint through heavy eyes at the digital clock. 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. You swipe the glass before your brain can even fully process the action. It is them. Another crisis. Another catastrophic, tear-soaked collapse of their world. Your alarm is set to ring for work in exactly 4 hours, yet you sit up, swing your bare feet over the edge of the mattress, and press the cold phone to your ear. For the next 3 hours, you talk them off a ledge. Your eyelids are burning. A dull, heavy ache throbs at the base of your skull. You rub your forehead in the dark, desperately trying to construct logical solutions for a person who only wants to drown you in their panic. You think you are stepping up as a crucial support system. You are actually being operated by remote control. This is the primal bypass. The dark triad understands a critical vulnerability in human neuroscience. The moment your instinct to protect is triggered, your logical threat detection goes completely offline. When your brain is flooded with pity, it shifts gears entirely. You stop looking for inconsistencies in their story. You stop noticing how their emergencies always seem to happen exactly when you are finally resting. You stop looking for red flags because your psychological hands are entirely occupied with applying bandages. A predator does not always show its teeth to conquer you. Sometimes it shows a bleeding wound. The weak version of you thrives on this midnight martyrdom. That version stays on the line, sacrificing sleep, cognitive function, and nervous system stability, desperately clinging to the intoxicating illusion of the savior complex. You convince yourself that without your immediate intervention, they will shatter. You feed your own hidden need for validation through their manufactured helplessness. But the ruthless version of you listens to that same frantic voice and hears nothing but a calculated extraction of your life force. That version pulls the phone away from the ear, stares at the glowing red button on the screen, and presses it. The room goes completely silent. You lie back down and close your eyes. The ruthless version understands a hard behavioral truth. Someone else's chronic, unmanaged chaos does not constitute your emergency. Giving up your rest tonight feels like a noble sacrifice. It feels like a quiet act of heroism in the dark. But a parasite does not just take one bite and leave your system intact. Soon, the midnight breakdowns will no longer be random. The crises will become a tightly scheduled requirement for your continued presence. And very soon, they will deploy one specific, terrifying phrase designed to weaponize your guilt and ensure you can never, ever escape. You are sitting on the very edge of the sofa, staring blankly at a lukewarm mug of coffee on the table in front of you, the surface already forming a thin, stale film. Your energy reserves are completely depleted. You have spent weeks playing the unpaid crisis manager, absorbing the endless shockwaves of their emotional debris, and your own life is visibly fraying at the seams. You rub the dry, coarse fabric of your jeans right above your knee, trying to find a polite escape route. You lean forward, you soften your tone, carefully modulating your pitch to sound perfectly supportive, and you gently suggest that perhaps they need to speak to a professional therapist, or maybe they could reach out to their family. You attempt to build a logical bridge toward an outside resource. Watch their physiology shift in real time. The exact moment you introduce an external solution, their breathing hitches. Their eyes immediately well up, the tears catching the glare of the overhead light. Their shoulders cave inward, physically shrinking them down into a posture of absolute defeat. Then comes the whisper, calibrated with surgical precision to shatter your remaining defenses. "I cannot," they say, their voice breaking. "You are the only one who truly understands me. Everyone else abandoned me." Do not confuse this with a compliment. This is weaponized isolation. When a manipulator systematically strips away every other support system in their narrative, they are not elevating your status. They are isolating themselves entirely onto your shoulders. It is a hostage situation brilliantly disguised as exclusive flattery. They sever all other supply lines to engineer a dynamic where your departure equates to their total destruction. By crowning you as the sole exception in a profoundly cruel world, they lock you in a psychological cage. If you step away now, you are no longer just a person setting a healthy limit. You become the final, ultimate traitor. You join the ranks of everyone else who discarded them. The weak version of you drinks this poison like it is the rarest vintage. That version feels a sudden, intoxicating surge of specialness. Your chest lifts slightly, a warm flush of validation spreading through your neck. You reach out, push the coffee mug away, and quietly cancel your own weekend plans, secretly thrilled to be so utterly indispensable. You reassure them that you are not going anywhere. You believe you are polishing a badge of heroism, completely blind to the fact that you just forged the padlock on your own chains. But the ruthless version of you watches this exact same performance and feels the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. The muscles in your back go completely rigid. You look past the shining eyes and the trembling lower lip, and the grand illusion shatters into dust. You recognize the architectural blueprint of emotional blackmail. You feel the cold, heavy steel of a bear trap snapping shut right over your ankle. In that terrifying, silent second of absolute clarity, the behavioral mathematics finally add up. I am not a savior. I am a supply. So you attempt to carry this crushing, disproportionate gravity. You drag it through your days, trying to keep them afloat while your own head slips below the water. The suffocating weight eventually becomes entirely unbearable. Your focus shatters, your energy flatlines, and you finally collide with your absolute breaking point. You decide to push back. You stand your ground. You say no. You set a definitive boundary. You rationally assume that because you have sacrificed so much, poured so much of your own vitality into their bottomless void, they will grant you a momentary reprieve. You think they will understand. Prepare for the most violent psychological whiplash of your entire life. Your thumb hovers over the glass, heavy with a suffocating, conditioned guilt, before finally tapping the send arrow. The message is simple. You tell them you cannot come over tonight to listen to them vent. You need to rest. You set the device face down on the kitchen counter, sliding it next to a stack of unopened mail, and brace yourself for a quiet, sad withdrawal. Instead, the phone vibrates so violently it rattles against the marble. The tears they usually weaponize evaporate in a microsecond. You pick up the device, and the blood instantly drains from your face, leaving your cheeks completely cold. There is no understanding. There is no gentle compromise. Your default screen wallpaper is completely buried under a massive, venomous wall of text. I thought you actually cared. You are incredibly selfish. You are just like every single other person who has ever abused me. Your pulse hammers right behind your eyes. A sharp spike of adrenaline hits the center of your chest. This is the unmasking. The mechanism driving this terrifying psychological whiplash is a sequence formally known as deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. The very moment you stop serving as a sponge for their manufactured trauma, the fragile victim disappears entirely, and the tyrant steps into the harsh light. Pity was never a genuine plea for emotional support. Pity was a leash, and the exact second you plant your feet and pull against it, they whip that same leash around your throat to choke you. By simply demanding a basic night of rest, you are immediately recast as the ultimate abuser in their narrative. The weak version of you reads that brutal accusation and spirals into a blind, desperate panic. Your throat tightens. You cannot bear the thought of being the villain in someone else's story. You immediately start typing out a frantic, groveling apology, desperate to prove you are still a good person. You backpedal, grab your car keys, and surrender your space, completely terrified of their judgment. You think you are saving a friendship, but you are actually training a tyrant. But the ruthless version of you reads the exact same message and goes completely still. Your grip on the phone tightens. You recognize the extortion. You understand the cold behavioral fact that a genuine victim respects a polite boundary, while a manipulator viciously attacks the fence the moment they realize they cannot cross it. You are now standing in the silence of your kitchen, staring at a piece of glass and metal that feels exactly like a live grenade. The pin is out. If you replied to defend yourself, if you apologize to smooth things over, the explosion will consume your autonomy. You will belong to them forever. They will own you. But there is a specific, cold-blooded algorithm to disarm this bomb before it ruins your life. The glow of the screen casts a harsh, pale light across your face, illuminating the paragraphs of pure venom sitting in your messages. Your heart is pounding so forcefully you can feel the pulse beating in the hollow of your throat. The trap is perfectly set. The weak version of you swallows the bait whole. Your thumbs fly across the glass, driven by a suffocating tightness in the center of your chest. You type a frantic 500-word essay. You meticulously explain your intentions. You apologize for causing pain. You beg for a sliver of basic understanding, deleting and rewriting sentences because you are terrified of sounding too harsh. Every single keystroke is a drop of blood in the water. You think you are clearing up a painful misunderstanding. In reality, you are handing them the exact currency they demand, your disorganized desperation. Now, observe the ruthless version of you. You read the identical message. You feel that exact same sickening spike of adrenaline flood your bloodstream. But instead of letting that chemical rush dictate your behavior, you physically restrict the muscles in your fingers. You force your breathing into a slow, deliberate drawl. You do not defend yourself. You do not explain. You type exactly 9 words. I am sorry you feel that way. Good night. You press the send arrow. You swipe down the menu and activate Do Not Disturb. You turn the device over, placing the dark glass flat against the cool surface of the counter. This is the precise execution of cold empathy. Empathy without ironclad boundaries is not a virtue. It is pure self-destruction. A psychological predator survives entirely on your emotional friction. They want the desperate essay. They need you to argue, to justify, to wrestle with their accusations in the mud. By removing your reaction, you neutralize the attack. You starve them of the one resource they require to maintain control. The Stoic philosophers mastered this concept centuries ago. A fortress is not built by arguing with the invading army, but by raising the drawbridge. You walk away from the kitchen. The silence in your room after you put that phone down is absolutely deafening. The conditioned urge to fix things will try to eat you alive for the next 24 hours, clawing at your stomach, begging you to check the screen just one more time. But surviving this night is only a tactical victory. To ensure no one ever weaponizes your pity against you again, your very identity must now undergo a brutal evolution. The pale morning sunlight cuts through the blinds, illuminating the dust particles floating in the quiet air above your bed. You open your eyes. The crushing weight that usually anchors your chest to the mattress the moment you wake up is entirely gone. You turn your head toward the nightstand. Your phone sits exactly where you left it, the dark glass face down on the wood. You do not reach for it. You do not check for casualties. You simply push the blankets aside and stand up. The floor tiles are freezing against your bare feet as you walk into the bathroom. You flip on the overhead switch and look straight at your reflection in the mirror above the sink. The chronic, exhausted tension pulling at the corners of your eyes has vanished. The familiar, gnawing guilt that used to suffocate your lungs is nowhere to be found. Instead, you feel a cold, solid iron rod running straight up the center of your spine. You did not merely survive a psychological predator last night. You did something far more ruthless. You dragged the deeply ingrained, desperate savior complex out of the shadows of your own mind, and you executed it. The world conditions you to believe that endless compassion is a moral imperative. It is not a virtue. It is a leash. A psychological predator depends entirely on your inability to watch others suffer. They weaponize your pity, turning your own biological empathy into a fatal blind spot. But looking at the glass, the final mechanism of control shatters. True power has absolutely nothing to do with lacking empathy. True power is the ruthless, unapologetic restriction of access to it. You finally recognize the brutal truth. Someone else's unhealed trauma is not your responsibility to fix. Their brokenness is not a mortgage you are required to pay off with your own sanity. For years, your nervous system acted as an emotional landfill for people who refused to process their own pain. Every time they dumped their chaos at your feet, you bent down and organized it for them. You offered yourself up as a human sacrifice just to keep the peace. Never again. You look at your hands resting on the porcelain edge of the sink. They are completely steady. You have taken the very trait they tried to exploit, your vulnerability, and transmuted it into an impenetrable shield. You are a sovereign territory now, and the borders are permanently closed to emotional tourists. Look closely at the reflection in the glass. Feel the steady rhythm of the air entering your lungs. State this out loud to the mirror right now, and write it in the comments below to permanently lock in your new psychological armor. I am no one's savior. You have reclaimed your territory, but the game never truly ends. Click the video on the screen right now to learn the 5 silent signs a narcissist is testing your boundaries before they attack.